Hey there Gundies, well if the intro was anything to go by, today we are going to be reviewing Terminator Resistance for the PlayStation 5. Now I had no idea this even existed up until recently when I discovered a picture of it on Instagram of all things, so I knew I had to review this to give you guys a little bit more of maybe an obscure game that you might not even know is out there. I had been absolutely burnt by the last Terminator game being Terminator Salvation on the PS3, which is an absolute piece of shit, and I hope I never have to review that game, so please don't ask me to do that one. But saying that, today we're looking at this one here, Terminator Resistance, and I have no idea whether this is going to be good or whether it's going to be bad. So today we're going to find out whether Terminator Resistance, whether it's a game worthy of Terminator games, it's going to set that next benchmark for Terminator games, or whether it's going to terminate its actual self by being another Terminator game that is just absolute dog poo. So with that being said, let's jump in and check out my review of Terminator Resistance for the PlayStation 5.
The title screen of this game has me so pumped with that classic Terminator theme music. Oh my god guys, this is so good. And then we are greeted by the handsome, smiling Terminator. The game begins in that set period between the first two Terminator movies, being Terminator 1 and Terminator 2 Judgment Day, where the Terminators themselves are becoming self-aware. The game has us taking control of our main character, that is, Jacob Rivers, a soldier from the Resistance led by the legendary John Connor himself against the Skynet's robotic killing machines. Jacob, unfortunately, becomes a sole survivor in his Resistance team that was deployed in Pasadena after a Terminator Infiltrator attack. While tackling Skynet patrols, Jacob makes an alliance with a bunch of human survivors composed of Jennifer and her brother Patrick, an old man named Ryan, Scavenger Colin, and the tough as old boots hospital nurse Erin. The game plays out like a big first-person shooter / JRPG style game, and when you throw in my two favourite sort of genres of games, that is just a recipe for something that could be potentially great. And I really loved the fact that there was not only the main campaign missions, there was quite a lot of errands you could do in the form of side missions. Yes, I know it's nothing new to the world of gaming, but I always love being able to do silly little missions. As you progress through the game, you really develop some really strong relationships and bonds with the other survivors within the game, and it's a really crucial thing to learn more about your purpose within this world, and you really need all the help you can get to survive the onslaught that is coming for you in the form of Skynet.
The game really takes on a sort of Fallout / Mass Effect style of the way it rolls out its dialogue within the game. So the way that you pick and choose to talk to or the other characters within the game, your comrades that is, it'll really impact the way the rest of the story and the missions that are given to you fall in the way that you interact with all the characters. So if you're nice, you're going to get sort of certain results, and if you're a prick, you're going to get a different sort of scenario. Now for me, I went the nice way, and I would love to know if there's anyone out there that decided to be a little bit of an arsehole and how your game went for you. But I went the nice way, and it even got me lucky with a couple of the ladies having sex with not one but two of the ladies within the game. And for those that have got young children, don't worry, it's very tame. You don't see any real nudity or anything like that, but you get the gist of what's going on in front of you. And it was rather interesting because I have never really played too many games that is where there's that sort of sex scenes within the game. And if you've got a young child, I probably wouldn't recommend you playing this game in front of them, not until they're older anyway, because of the violence that's within the game. But yeah, that being said, I really like the way that the game held its dialogue throughout this game.
The mission levels are wide and expansive, and you really do have a bit of freedom to pick and choose the way you want to play out the missions in these big open world environments. The only thing I would say, guys, is if you're a trophy hunter like myself, I got the platinum trophy for this game, which was an absolute pleasure. It's not hard at all, but you really need to focus on getting your level upgraded on your lock picking, which we'll talk a little bit more as we go through this review, but that is something crucial that you will need, because you'll get to a certain part where you won't be able to go back to get that particular trophy. All this lock picking really had me excited, because it really reminded me of playing the good old school style, and it's hard to say this, old school style games of Fallout back on the PlayStation 3. Can you believe it, that the PlayStation 3 is already starting to go into that retro phase? Man, I feel old. While we're talking about levels, I really did want to say something that was a little bit, I noticed it, let's just say that, was the fact of there were battles done during the daylight hours, and I'm being super picky here, but during the original movies, all the battles against Skynet with the Resistance were done in the hours of the night where it was pitch black, and they had that advantage against Skynet without being seen. They could camouflage their faces, they could stealth their way through and, you know, blow the Skynet to smithereens, where, you know, during the daylight hours this would not have been a really good move at all. You'd have to be really ballsy to do that against Skynet. When we're not out there killing off the Resistance out in the wild one by one, we spend a lot of our time in the Resistance shelter. Now, one cool thing that I found during some research was that the Terminator shelter was a complete replica of Terminator 1, and I mean down to everything being in the same place as the movie. Now, I thought that this was so freaking cool. I mean, come on guys, the dedication there is just next level, so hats off to the team behind this. The game did a sensational job in making you feel alone and at times quite scared, to be honest. The dark, rundown atmosphere was really adding to those scary vibes. The fact that my heart was racing, guys, the first time I came across a Terminator is saying something when you're playing a game. Especially having to hide from the Terminators when you don't have a plasma rifle to use against them. Even at times when I had a plasma, I still felt like I was going to, you know, how was I going to get past these Terminators? I was shitting myself, but we'll talk more on weapons soon. One of the first useful items that we receive within the game are the Ultra Vision goggles, enabling us to see through walls within a limited radius. Trust me, this is super handy when you're trying to see whether there are any Terminators up ahead. Later on, we can even upgrade this for a little bit of better vision. Enemies in your near location can be highlighted in red above their name in what is called a detection indicator. Nothing new to the world of gaming, but it's something that does hold true. If you're too noisy or you come close in eyesight of the enemy, it'll trigger the battle and it's on for young and old. If you manage to run away and hide while you've been seen or been heard, you can help yourself by hiding somewhere and waiting for it to cool down, where the enemy will then return to its general battle mode or stance within a located area nearby. We also receive another useful item in the form of a Terminator knife. Well, it would be useful if I was good at bloody using it. For some reason, for me, I really struggled at times to stealth kill a lot of these Terminators, especially when they were in big open areas, because by the time I got close to them, the Terminator would often turn around and start attacking me. So I found the Terminator knife not so useful in the open areas, but when you're in more confined areas, it did seem to do the trick. But yeah, I would often find myself being killed off by the Terminators just from making silly mistakes with the Terminator knife. If you're going to stand any sort of chance with getting through this game and completing it with ease, you're going to have to make sure that you're looting enemies and scanning every area that you go through to make sure you haven't left behind any precious metals. Now, these metals can be used to transform these into things like ammunition for weapons, which are super scarce, especially in the start of the game. You're going to be wanting to get as much metals and scraps as that you can, and trust me, it does get very tough in the beginning. You can also use these metals to get things like health packs, because you're going to need many health packs, especially when you get to the areas where the Terminators are surrounding you. As we go through killing off Skynet, blowing up things and collecting metals, we build up our experience points, which then allow us to upgrade our character through level upgrades. This having things like having more health, having more ammunition, and building our infantry box system so then we can hold on to more items. Now this interface, I will say, where you look at where you're looking at your levels and you're looking at your item box, is very simplistic, and it really gives me those old school Resident Evil vibes, which isn't really a bad thing. Ideally, I don't really need this to be all pretty, I just like it to be nice and simple and not confusing, so this gets a big tick of approval. You can also upgrade your weapons, and it's kind of fun really, because you have to collect little circuits that are dropped by enemies, and by lining up the lines perfectly, the circuit that is, you can upgrade your weapons to have better fire rates and more ammunition load clips as well, which I thought was really cool and neat, and just makes it a little bit fun as you're going through and killing off enemies. A really useful tool, especially in the early stages of the game, is the ability to hack things. You can use the hacking tool to gain access to enemy turrets, so you can send back the firepower back onto the enemy, and even open certain locations. The hacking itself is basically like a big game of Frogger, and I absolutely adore this. Jumping from one side to the other while trying to avoid the moving obstacles is just a lot of fun. Most are pretty easy, but you can expect them to get quite difficult, especially when you find the hacking stations that are set to hard. Thankfully, if you stuff it up, you can just go simply back in and try again. One thing I absolutely loved was, even though the game had the autosave feature, you could go and manually save on the little retro old computers that you found around the place. And I just love this. It just felt like these old nostalgia vibes from back in the day, so that was a really cute little piece I found within the game. Now graphically, the game isn't next level, it's not going to blow you away, but it just screams 90s. It's got that old school look to it, that, you know, that sort of graphics that was around that end of the PS3 sort of time, at the start of the PS4. It just has that sort of feel to it, and I just think it just gives the game justice. The characters themselves look fantastic, but I will say that sometimes the voicing wouldn't really match up with the mouth movement, but that is just me being a little bit picky there. Lighting in the game is something that the game is actually really strong for. You know, at times I would notice the light from the moon shining down upon the environment, and even the real strong looks that were given off the fire, the redness and just the way that would shimmer their surrounding areas. I just loved that. Music in the game is utterly fantastic and really just has you pumped on the edge of your seat, especially during the periods of when you're getting attacked by Skynet themselves. And I must say, when I was installing this game, it just had me so excited, because it had that dun 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 dun, and it just was like, oh my god, let me get into this game. I just want to play right now. There's quite a good balance of guns within this game, from pistols to shotguns, all the way up to terminating, killing plasma guns. There's something for you to take out those pesky little metal robots. One catch though, guys, don't expect to kill off any Terminators without the laser plasma guns. Or alternatively, you can use explosions or grenades to take out the Terminators too. The best way to kill Terminators fast though is through stealth and getting them with the Terminator knife. Saying that though, as I said before, I was never good at this, so maybe you will be better in that regard. As the plasma ammo is kind of scarce in the game, my way of playing this game was to use that sort of ammo on the Terminators themselves, and then use things like the shotgun and the pistols to take out the minor enemies within the game. While we're talking enemies, there is such a great variety of favourites from the movie series. There's something for every Terminator fan. We'll take a look at some of the enemies within the game, the first one being the Spider Scouts. These spiders are lightly armoured and will attack you with electric pincers. So if you get close to these guys, be sure to know that you will get electrocuted by these and they will take some damage. One of my most hated enemies in the game, guys, without a doubt would have to be the HK Silverfish. Mainly because they would pack such a punch if they hit you. HK Silverfish are low to the ground segmented attack drones that resemble its namesake insect, the silverfish. Silverfishes are acted through close movement, so if you're running through a nest of these things, trust me, you're going to die very, very quickly. The best thing to get rid of these things is to make sure you have a shotgun on you to shoot them as they're rolling at you, or to just throw a grenade at the nest and take them all out before they even have a chance to see you. A really interesting fact I found that was the HK Silverfish has never actually even been in a Terminator movie. It, however, had been intended to be seen in the opening battle in Terminator 2 Judgment Day. I just found this rather interesting and I thought you guys would just love that little bit of knowledge there. Scout drones in the game are a really cool enemy too, basically a big drone utilised by Skynet for scout missions. They survey the land for any resistance by air. In later stages of the game, the upgraded versions of the scout drones called the armoured drones will appear and will take a lot more firepower to take out. Armoured spiders in the game provide a lot of fun. In the beginning they're quite hard to take out, but in the later stages you'll find you'll take these out with ease, especially as you level up. I'm one of those people that just love seeing spiders in games and movies. Then guys, we start getting into the big enemies. We have the HK Aerial, a large airborne resistance human killer, featuring a devastating array of a weapon that has lasers to missiles and even plasma cannons. The HK Aerial is fearsome and terrifying to behold. I will do my best, guys, to avoid these. Next up we have the HK Tank, an enemy several stories in height and vaguely humanoid in shape. This bad boy is equipped with 2 barrel directional plasma cannons and 2 legs consisting of massive individual tank treads. Guys, this is just super scary and big, but thankfully it can be easily destroyed with a well-placed demolition charge. Then how could we talk about the Terminator game with not talking about the Terminators themselves? The T-800s would have to be my favourite, being the original cybernetic organisms. The Terminators themselves just looked super detailed. You know, overall the game's graphics weren't great, but when you look at the individual parts of the game, things like the Terminators were just spot on, and it just looked like they had just stepped straight out of the movie onto the screen, and you can't ask for anything more but that. One feature I loved was the way that the game broke itself up a little bit by throwing in the odd boss battle here and there. One battle I really enjoyed was against the T-850. It was so fun and quite hard to boot. The great thing about Terminator Resistance is it can either be a long game or a much shorter game, depending on how much you're willing to explore and how much you're wishing to complete, especially with things like the side missions. I honestly never found myself getting bored. It just takes a little while to get anywhere in the beginning, as you need to build your stats and learn how to play the game. Now, once you complete the game, I highly recommend checking out Infiltrator mode. This is just so freaking awesome, and you get to play as the Terminator in a point scoring run. As you complete the objectives, a number of hidden Easter eggs in this mode will appear too, and that's all I'm going to say in that regard. I really love the start of this mode as it plays out just like the movie when Arnold walks up to the street punks asking to take their clothes.
Your clothes. Give them to me.
Now we come to the part of the review where we get the rating, whether I'm going to give this game a big cross of death or a tick of approval, and then explain why I have given it that rating. And I am giving Terminator Resistance for the PlayStation 5 the big Gundamruss tick of approval. It is a game that truly deserves your attention. And I am actually quite pissed off, to be honest, that some of the big review game companies out there took a big shit on this game, because it really doesn't deserve those sort of review scores that they were given. Obviously, these people hadn't had a chance to play this game. I know that, you know, everyone deserves to have their opinion, which I'm giving mine. And if that, you know, if you think this game is crap, well, that's your opinion. But the scores that were given by some of these big companies, which I'm not going to name, I just felt like they were unjustified. Like, you know, 4s and even seeing 3s. I was like, come on, like seriously. I know that the graphics in this game honestly aren't out of this world. Look, they're probably on par with probably PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4 at best, but this game truly deserves to be in your collection. It really does set that benchmark for future Terminator games. It paid tribute to the original movies. The characters in this were just done really well. Yes, you know, there was the parts where I spoke about the, you know, the voices didn't seem to at times match up with the facial movements, but they're just little minor things. And, you know, overall, I just had an absolute blast playing this game from start to finish. It's just one of these games where I'm just so thankful that I decided to pick this up and give it a go. I would have hated to have never seen this game, or had just seen the review from these other companies and gone, oh, it's not a great game, I'm just going to leave it aside. So I am so thankful that I decided to do a review on this game, because I absolutely loved it. So please, go out there, do yourself a favour, pick this game up. Let me know in the comment section below if you picked up this game, because that just makes me so happy to read those sort of comments. And I just want to say a big thank you to each and every one of you for your support. This is the sort of thing that I want to continue doing, is reviews. And I know that each and every time we do these reviews, I'm learning as we go, and we're getting a little bit better each time. So thank you. I've had a few people reach out asking if they could support me in any way. And if you're wanting to do that, there's the YouTube members, and I also have Patreon back on as well. So if you choose to do that, by all means do that, because it's very much helpful, especially in regards to things like props and continuing to make this channel better. Ideally, one day I'd love to do this full time, and obviously still do my other work, which is in retail. But yeah, I'd love to do this more as a full-time thing in the future. But, you know, little baby steps as we go. All right, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, fools. See you later.